My poster comes from something that was a labor of love, one that started with a daughter that went overseas to teach, and how most of us start our professional careers is absolutely at the university, and we learn about our craft and the subject matter that we love and what we're going to do, but there really never seems to be quite enough mentoring when it comes to how do you actually use all that knowledge when it comes to teaching. And so mentors are needed. And does every department have enough folks available for a mentor? The answer to that's no. Or do people have enough time for a mentor? The answer to that is no. They say this started when my daughter went to China. She was teaching English at a Chinese university, and her mentor had 13 classes, which was normal load over at the Chinese university. My daughter had 7 classes. And her mentor was not there most of the time. Every now and then she would pop in. So because of Apple and FaceTime, I was able to mentor her. And this is what started a lovely relationship for she and I, because on our evening Apple talk, she would say, "Mom, they want me to do blah. I don't know what that means." And at that time, I was already PhD prepared, teaching in nursing education. At the time, I was running a couple programs. So the question she had, even though I wasn't an English teacher, I understood what she needed. So what is mentoring? The definition I got from Merriam-Webster was someone who teaches or gives help and advice to a less experienced and often younger person. Many people, when they look for a mentor, think has to be in your discipline. It does not. She was English, and I always laughed at her. I called her my English major friend, because I'm not a writer. I do write. I learned to write because I have a PhD, but it's not one of my favorites. So I could mentor her even though I wasn't in her discipline. Doesn't need to be the same education level either. When she first started, indeed, she was teaching at a university, as was I. When she came back to the States, she was no longer at the university, but the same principles apply. And you don't have to have experience with that person's discipline and profession. She was an English faculty. Faculty is all I needed to hear. I could help her because of what was in a faculty role, not because I knew what English was and how to teach it, because I certainly do not, although I'm pretty good at APA. The things you do need, though, you need time. So for her, we talked almost Monday through Friday, every morning at 7 a.m. I was starting my day with breakfast. She was ending her day because they were 12 hours ahead. And you need to be able to share a passion. If I didn't have a passion for students and wanting to see students succeed, I wouldn't have really cared that she was struggling. I'm like, yeah, whatever, talk to your mentor. But I did have a passion for how could she help her students to be the best that they possibly could be. So these are the things you need to look for in a mentor. If you have someone new in your department and no one has time, they don't have to be from your department to be a good mentor. So again, with her, it was mentoring across disciplines. Once she came back to the States, it was different education levels. She became a high school English teacher while I was still in the university level. And so what were some things that we had to talk about, even in China, as simple as a syllabus? She said, "Oh, Mom, they want me to have one, but I really don't know what one looks like." "What do you mean you don't know what one looks like?" So I shared with her some of mine. These are the things that you must have in it, course description, your objectives, how the course is going to run. There are policies for your course. The policies comes right down to the next one, which is classroom management. In the Chinese classroom, she really struggled with some of the students wanting to play on their phones and talk while she was trying to teach. And so she had to find that she put in her syllabus that cell phones would not be allowed. And if they played on them, she would take them. But if it's a policy, they need to follow it. So I said, "Well, is it in your syllabus?" She went, "Oh, it's not." I said, "Well, it should be." And she was able to overcome that. Carried that through to the high school classroom. What do I need as far as policies? I said, "Well, remember, your syllabus is your contract with your student. If you're going to expect it, must be in your syllabus. So again, we had this back and forth of, she would send me ideas. Well, this is what I want to put in it. Can I do that? Every now and then I'd have to say, well, are you, is that fair to everybody? Can you get dinged because you're discriminating? Does that set up any kind of issue? Where I got my PhD was IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. The one thing they taught us well there was how not to be sued, and passed that on to her. And then, assessment and evaluation. How do you create a test? In China, she was like, I've never created a test before. How do I do that? I said, well, you have an idea because you've taken them. Get one started, send it to me. We'll look at it. We'll talk about it. How do you do the evaluation piece? She had a project that she put together that she wanted the students to complete. And in the end, not one single student did it right. She then on one of our mentoring calls, but every single student did it wrong. And this was the question that comes from somebody in my mind that's an innate educator, because her next sentence to me was, what did I do wrong that none of my students got it? I'm like, wow, well, that's a great place to start. What did you do wrong? Let's look at your instructions. Let's talk about them, recraft them. And I would say redo that assessment. If every single student didn't understand, then indeed there was something wrong. And so this back and forth started in China, came back to the US. Same thing with some of her high school assessments, with things that, oh, well, I want them to understand better. Now what do I do? So we would talk about how you could evaluate and offer a second chance, but not give them extra credit points, or allow the students that already did well to, to overachieve when you really wanted others just to get it. So there was a lot of back and forth. And then after she'd been teaching, a year here in the States, it came down to a reciprocal back and forth as I found new things that I wanted to try, and new things that I thought, well, I need someone outside of nursing to read this to see if they understand it. Because how many of you have created a project in a prompt and you know what it means, and then your students give you something totally different? So I would send my ideas to her. What do you think about this? Do you know what I'm asking for? And it wasn't because she was a nurse or a nursing student. She was outside of the box. She could look at it and say, oh, well, what do you mean by this? Or I get it up until that point. And so this process that started as me being the mentor and her being the mentee turned into this lovely reciprocal mentoring where we could pass ideas back and forth. I even have created an online video for APA, 2 sections of it that she helped me do. She's the one that has more technical experience with running a camera and how to edit a video. And so it really turned into a lovely piece. Review of quizzes and examinations. She actually is the Sarah Silva listed on here. She just couldn't present today. She switched jobs and is working. But all of this back and forth, it just allows support. Even if it was just I need to vent, not giving any type of name of student, but just a vent because, oh my gosh, things just didn't go well. This assignment was terrible, or the students, I can't believe they're not picking up. And she was able to do that for me and I for her. And it really was something that was wonderful. And so in conclusion, given this was supposed to be a poster, I don't have 30 minutes worth, but my conclusion would be, if you've got a new faculty member, or someone that's new to teaching, or for those of us that are nurses, even a new nurse needs this, take someone under your wing, help them. They don't have to be at your level, but they can be. They don't have to be in your profession, but they can be. Think outside the box. Be willing to say, hey, I've been there. I get it. What can I help with? You're not doing their work. And what you might find in the end is that you develop a relationship that lasts for years and allows both you and your initial mentee to then be mentor and mentee both at the same time. we sometimes tend to limit ourselves. Oh, it has to be at my school. It has to be at my university. It has to be in my profession. It does not have to be any of that. What it can be is you, the professional, that sees someone else struggling and says, hey, let me help. Or you, the one that's struggling, looks to someone that you've heard at a conference, that you've seen somewhere else, that you know personally, which would have been my daughter and I, and you reach out to them and you make the time. Or at least if you can't make the time, maybe you can find them someone that can help them to successfully transition and to be the best professional they can be. And that's what I found with my Sarah. I certainly have mentors of my own. Even when she was in China, my then boss, who had been a English as a second language educator for years before he came into the dean role, if Sarah and I couldn't figure it out, we'd go to Dr. Holker and he would say, okay, I love Sarah questions. What do we have today? So always remember, we all started with no knowledge. Be ready to help those that are not you so that maybe they can pass that on. What's that saying? Pay it forward. What someone has done for me, I'm happy to do for someone else. All right, questions at this point? Come on now. Someone needs to give a question or two, only because I'm the moderator and it was my presentation. So let's go. I'm going to encourage here a little bit.
Christina, it's Janice. I have a question for you.
Hi.
When you're talking about mentoring, which do you prefer and why? A formal mentoring process or an informal mentoring process?
I'm going to tell you I've had both. And I think I like the informal better only because with an informal, generally you are the one that has found a person. And so there's some type of relationship that they've said yes. So that it's not a, oh my God, I was assigned to you, which to me is what formal mentoring was. And my formal mentor didn't necessarily wish to make time. It was just on her list of duties. So it can work both ways, but for me, the informal has been better, but certainly with the right person, formal mentoring can work just as well.
Thank you.